The internet has given anyone and everyone the audacity to go on Amazon, Best Buy, Currys or Argos, buy a mic, buy a couch, side tables, mic stand, etc., have some neon lights as filler lights, and start a podcast. That's why people can spew rubbish like this.
Black women shouldn't want their hair westernised. Why do they want it westernised? A black lady who's westernised and has all the hair extensions is straying from her natural roots, so she's not authentically black. She's trying to be something that she's not. It's watering down who you are authentically. You should be natural. That's what I say, I'm a naturalist. And if women were that way inclined, they'd be less combative. It's a woman trying to fit in with Western agenda.
No, why can't they just want straight hair?
Why do they want straight hair though?
Because they just feel like it looks better.
No, because they've seen it on the white girl and the Western world that they want it. Yes, it is, man.
It's just like how people say
go speak to a woman in Africa and chat to her, innit? With no makeup. They put natural stuff. Nothing is natural, and that's what confuses women and disconnects women from who they are as beings.
You can tell that sis is really, really insecure around black people. I mean, this is not the first time we've seen something like this. Like, there's evidence. Let me just play for you guys. Let me not say it by myself.
I think we white women have an inferiority complex. The Eastern women and the Negro women have a sort of reputation for being so beautiful. And we're a little jealous of them.
I guess you just envy us colored people.
Well, is there anything corresponding to that?
Well, I think so, Mrs.
I think I can speak for every black girl or woman or non-binary person watching me that at least 90% of black women in this world are very proud to be black. And her making reference to African women just adds another layer of ignorance. Speak to a woman in Africa. What the fuck do you think women in Africa look like? The racial stereotype in that 1 minute clip is so disgusting. African women are beautiful, they put on makeup, they wear bikinis, they romanticize their lives, they wear bust down wigs. And one thing, African women are fucking rich. Who is the richest black woman in the world? A Nigerian. Who is the CEO of Topicals? A Nigerian. And one thing that baffles me is the fact that they generalize the whole continent. Africa has 54 countries. Africa is rich and is beautiful. Like, generalizing a whole continent pisses me off. African women own makeup brands that has traveled across the world. African women are independent, they love luxury, and they live very comfortable lives. I would never feel like I am disconnected from my roots because I choose to slap on some makeup or wear some bust down wigs. I know this is a lot to just throw in at the beginning of a video, but let me tell you why some black women or most black women choose to wear wigs. The westernized world has long struggled to embrace the natural beauty and the diversity of black hair. Our hair, with its rich textures and styles, is often viewed through a lens of bias and misunderstanding. It's not just about aesthetics. It's a deeply ingrained societal issue that extends even down to the workplace. Natural hairstyles from afros to locks to braids are frequently labeled as unprofessional or ghetto, and they are seen as incompatible with a corporate image that still centers on Eurocentric beauty standards. This perception just forces many of us to conform to these standards just to gain acceptance or to be considered fit for certain environments. The workplace, which should be a space of meritocracy and inclusion, often becomes a site for microaggression and discrimination of black people who choose to wear their natural hair. For instance, black women with a sleek bust-down straight wig is more likely to be viewed as professional or presentable than a black woman who has her natural coils or her locks or her braids. This is an unspoken rule, and this unspoken rule just creates a pressure to assimilate, compelling many people to wear wigs or chemically alter their hair in order to avoid scrutiny, rejection, or outright exclusion. So when Becky with the good hair decides to sit on that chair with her crusty ass microphone to utter such statements, someone should please tell her to think again and ask herself how and why women choose to wear bust-down wigs. Because it's so funny, podcasting started as a niche hobby, but it has now become a global sensation, transforming the way we engage with information and entertainment. Yet, as podcasting grows, and as it grows at a very incredible pace, it brings along its own challenges that we cannot even ignore. In this video, I'm going to delve into real-world examples. I'm going to explore practical solutions to some of the key problems that are facing the podcasting world today, and I'm going to take a closer look at the less visible, more complex aspects of podcasting, and I will speak about the impact that these issues have on our society, the media landscape, and how we think critically as individuals. That being said, let me introduce myself. Hi guys, my name is Jo, and this is my third time recording this video. Yes, the first time I recorded it, my camera was blur. Second time I recorded it, I was extremely happy with it. I'm about to edit, and my MacBook is like, we cannot read the file. I put it on my camera, and I seen this. This was literally last night. And I check on YouTube, apparently the tutorial was working for every other person except me. And I was like, you know what, let me sleep and wake up, maybe it's a dream. I slept and woke up, it wasn't a dream. So I had to format my card and redo my video. So that being said, on this channel, I just speak about whatever I want to speak about, whether they're trendy or not. So if video essays are your cup of tea, reaction, documentaries, deep dives, you're welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. And that being said, let's get into the word for today. So the word for today says, embrace change as the sculptor of your evolution into greatness. Embrace change as the sculptor of your evolution into greatness. And this is from my journal, the Manifesto of Vision journal. It's a complete guide to journaling. It has original shadow work prompts, brain dumps, and literally everything you need for journaling. That being said, every makeup that's on my face, you can find on my TikTok shop. The link is going to be in my description box, or you can also find on my Amazon storefront. If you want your pet videos to be featured at the end of my video, send it to the email down in my description box, and I'm going to put it at the end of my video once a week. That being said, let's just get straight into this video. Please share this video, because for the month of December, I am pushing myself to have 1 million views in at least one video, or let's say at least 2 videos. So that being said, let's get straight into this video. I remember a time before the pandemic, back when podcasts just felt like the treasure troves of value and substance. I used to use Apple Podcasts, so you would open Apple Podcasts and there it was, gripping true crime series like Crime Junkie or empowering self-help shows that left you inspired to tackle the challenges that life threw at you.
Hi, Crime Junkies. I'm your host, Ashley Flowers.
And I'm Fred.
Podcasts back then, they had weight, they had meaning, they had substance. If I was looking for how to better my life, or if I was curious about something, or I just needed someone to talk to, I would listen to self-development podcasts and also true crime stories, but my podcasts were mostly for self-development podcasts. Then came COVID-19. With the world on pause and everyone stuck at home, a strange shift happened. Boredom was mixed with an abundance of time, and this sparked a podcasting boom. Suddenly, it seemed like everyone was setting up a mic in their living room and calling themselves a podcaster. Don't get me wrong, some of these new creators, they brought incredible voices to the table. But then there were others. They were the ones who made us cringe collectively. And here comes the Alpha Male Podcast. What could have been a chance to uplift, connect, or challenge ideas instead turned into a stage for loud opinions, tired stereotypes, and some truly baffling opinions.
Woman, your job is to be an assistant to your man. Like, he's a star, you're not. Because here's the problem, right? When women are the star, I'll explain what I mean by this. When women are the star, or women are the focus of the relationship, or they're the leader, or they're the one that's making the money or whatever, problems come up. Because when women feel like they're better than you, you guys want something else. But if we feel like we're better than you, we want to share our betterness with you. That's why I always say all the time, guys should just focus on their career and making money and becoming the best version of themselves, because women benefit when a guy does better. But if you're focusing on your career and making more money, etc., the man doesn't benefit. We're going to probably lose you, as a matter of fact, if we let you be the leader and focus on everything. Don't share resources. They just don't. But we do. We're designed for it. If I make a bunch of money, I'll gladly build a home and, have children with you, whatever. Just don't be a whore. But with you, if you make the money and you're the leader, you're going to leave me for someone better, because it's in a woman's psyche and nature to want a better man.
It's like the podcasting world just got overrun by people who forgot that having a platform comes with responsibilities. In recent years, a new wave of podcasts has gained significant traction, and I am referring to shows that are often labeled as the alpha male or the red pill content. These podcasts, they promise advice on relationships, success, mental health, and personal growth. But beneath the surface, their messaging often leans into toxic ideas about gender roles and masculinity. At their core, this show positions themselves as guides for men navigating modern lives. Their hosts, typically self-proclaimed dating experts or lifestyle gurus, they claim to teach men how to be more assertive, successful, and dominant. And on the surface, this might sound empowering. But the problem is, many of these podcasts, they wrap their advice in harmful stereotypes about women. They wrap their podcasts in harmful stereotypes about relationships. They wrap their advice in harmful stereotypes about what it means to be a man.
Is something in women that's just embedded in them. It's a natural propensity that you have to actually be dependent on a man, not independent. Because you don't really want independence. You do want to depend on a man, but I think that is currently right now is like socially acceptable for women to say that they want independence. And you're super young. You've been like manipulated and psyop by the feminist movement and many other movements that's out there. But I get what you. I just want you to understand like your core beliefs, biological proclivities that you have inside is to depend on a man.
One podcast that exemplifies this trend is the Red Pill podcast, Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate, etc. Let's talk about the Red Pill podcast. The term or the name Red Pill, it comes from the idea of taking the red pill. And this is a metaphor that was popularized online, and it's supposed to represent seeing the truth about society. And in this context, the truth is often framed as rejection of feminism and gender equality, which the hosts argue have disempowered men. So women standing up for their rights, women recognizing their worth, is disempowering men. You come across grown-ass men just saying disgusting things. For example, they could say something like, women are essentially overgrown children who need to be led and disciplined by men. Let that sink in for a moment. This kind of delivery not only diminishes women's autonomy, but it positions men as perpetual leaders in relationships, turning what should be partnerships into a dynamic of control and submission. One thing you should know is that this isn't just about one podcast or one controversial quote. This kind of messaging has real life consequences. There have been studies that have shown that consuming content like this can lead to increased hostility towards women and decreased empathy in relationships. For young men who are still figuring out how to interact with other people, this idea can become their foundation for understanding gender roles. Even with the words or the phrases that people use, phrases like disciplined women are deeply concerning, especially when it comes out of the mouth of these men onto their microphones. They frame relationship as something hierarchical. They frame relationship as something where control and dominance replaces respect and mutual understanding. And this kind of thinking can normalize controlling or even abusive behavior. Personally, I believe that without a head, there is no neck. And I believe, especially in a heterosexual relationship, even in a homosexual relationship, there's one person that's kind of seen as a leader, and the other one, not like the other one follows, but the other one is as a support system. Where one person does not have 100%, the other one would have the 100%. So it's an equal partnership supporting each other. Okay? Without the head, there will be no neck. And without the neck, there will be no head for the whole body to flow. So it's an equal partnership for the rest of your body to work proportionately. So these men sitting on their podcast and spewing this nonsense saying that women should be controlled and they should be the more submissive one. Imagine if the neck had no function of its own. Imagine if the neck always waited on the head to do everything and the neck not working collectively. Do you think your body will function proportionately? Do you think the rest of your body will function? Because the head and the neck connects to the rest of the body. If there's no head or neck, the other part of the body is dead. So when men sit on their podcast and say all this nonsense, it just shows the amount of hatred they have for women. The ideas, the thinking, the things these men say out of their mouth is so outdated. This podcast, they often lean on outdated ideas that men must be dominant or men should not express their emotions, while women should be submissive and they should be the caregivers of the relationship. And this sort of thinking just limits everyone and it leaves little room for genuine human connection and even personal growth. I know I have probably said some very frustrating things and you may wonder, do people really sit down and listen to these shows and think it's okay? Well, the answer is yes. There is a reason why these shows are so popular. Many of their listeners are men who feel lost, frustrated, or left out in a world where traditional gender norms are shifting. And this podcast, they offer simple answers to this struggle. And the answers are: number 1, blame feminism. Number 2, blame modern women. Number 3, blame societal changes for your challenges because it's not your fault. And it's a very appealing narrative because it tells its listeners it's not your fault and here's how to take control. Unfortunately, the advice that they get often focuses on putting other people down rather than building themselves up in a healthy, constructive way.
Girls that are modern don't qualify for the top tier men usually. That's just a fact.
I disagree.
No, they qualify for recreational use only. They'll smash those single moms, they'll smash those chicks in the club and stuff, but they don't wife them up. You got no ring, you got no true commitment because you don't qualify, man. These niggas lie to you, like I said. If you want to get rich, you lie to people that want to be lied to. If you want to make a living, you tell the truth to people that want to be told the truth to. If you want to be broke, you tell the truth to people that want to be lied to. I don't care about going broke. I'm here to tell the truth. You modern day women just don't qualify for the top tier men, and that is the truth.
That being said, let's look at the bigger picture. The rise of this podcast, they often reflect broader cultural tensions. And as society pushes for gender equality, some men, they feel left behind or even threatened. Why are you feeling threatened? If you're in the workplace and there are new rules that come out in the workplace, won't you adjust yourself to follow the new rules that come out? Are you going to say, because this is how I've been working, I'm not going to listen to what they say? If not, you will be kicked out of the workplace. So why is it so hard for you to adjust yourself when cultural shifts are changing? Instead of finding constructive ways to adapt, they turn to content that validates their frustrations and reinforces their grievances. Please recognize that this is not even happening in a vacuum. This podcast, they thrive in an environment where gender inequality, a lack of education about healthy relationships, and the glorification of outdated thoughts still persist. And tackling this issue obviously is not easy, but it's very necessary. There are several ways we can make a difference. First of all, teaching media literacy. Many listeners, especially younger ones, they might not have the tools to critically analyze what they are hearing. So teaching people how to spot biased or harmful messaging can help them make more informed choices about the content that they consume. And also, we should hold these podcast platforms accountable. Podcasting platforms, they also have a role to play too. They need to consider the impact of hosting content that spread harmful ideas. While balancing free speech is tricky, it's also worth exploring ways to promote content that uplift rather than divide. Another thing is promoting positive masculinity. There is a need for more content that offers healthy perspectives on being a man. Content that values respect, vulnerability, and equality. When we showcase role models who embody these traits, we create a better alternative for those who are seeking guidance. And lastly, we should also encourage open conversations. We need to talk openly about why men are drawn to this kind of content. We need to address their frustrations and fears directly. We should also try to offer better solutions and help them see that growth doesn't have to come at someone else's expense. And when I say we, I don't mean like, oh, women or whatever. Because if you're a grown-ass person, you should understand. But obviously, I can understand that there are also young people who listen to all these podcasts. And if you think that your young child is acting like Andrew Tate, then I think you need to sit them down, speak to them, give them the necessary resources. If it's really, really bad, or if you think you can't do it on your own, this is where you can involve a therapist, show them models and people they can look up to. There are so many men out there that are doing the Lord's work. This is why you need to speak to them, because unfortunately podcasts like this are out to destroy our youth and feed them with something that they should not even in the first place think about. Why does this matter? It matters because podcasts are so powerful. They can shape the way people think and act, and this is why it's so important to push back against harmful narratives like the ones that are found in Fresh and Fit, Red Pill podcast, Andrew Tate. I have a video on him if you've not watched it, and I've had like 2 people telling me, oh my god, my brother used to act like Andrew Tate. So at the end of the day, this isn't just about podcasts, it's about the kind of society that we want to build. Do we want one where relationships are based on control or dominance, or one where respect and equality are the foundation? If we are intentional about what we consume, what we create and what we stand for, it can shape a media landscape that uplifts everyone, not just a select few. Now, let's shift our gear a little bit to the Under the Influence podcast. So the Under the Influence podcast, if you do not know them, they're a group of Asian people, so men and I think either 2 or 1 women. Like, to be fair, like I have never watched them. I just see clips of them flying around, and I don't even know the first clip I saw of them flying around, and I just knew that this is not even something that I would want to focus my energy on. But they're a group of Asian people who come together and do podcast things. First of all, Under the Influence is a term that was popularized by Chris Brown. Let me just go into these videos. Let me just talk about it a little bit more, because what I want to say, if I start now to say it, it may not make sense. During an episode of the Under the Influence podcast, they've tried so hard to delete this video of the internet, but I can remember when it was trending, and when I went to TikTok to look for the original video, I couldn't find it. Obviously they would have deleted it, but I did not see like a full video. I just saw reactions to it. But anyways, during an episode, the co-host Esther, she made a very deeply offensive and completely unfounded claim about black women's bodies. Esther said that black women supposedly have wider vajayjays due to their ethnicity. So in her words, she was like, since black men have bigger pins, it needs to fit the size of the black women. That's why black women have bigger vajayjays.
Okay, I'm gonna say something kind of wild, but it's because I saw it somewhere. But I don't know if we might have to cut it out. But anyways, someone said that the reason why some girls' vagina is tighter than others is because... Huh? No. It has nothing to do with that. They said that it's because, like, ethnicity-wise, like black men have, are known to have larger dicks. So therefore, the women have
makes sense.
Bigger holes.
Oh, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
This statement is not only scientifically baseless, but it also perpetuates a harmful stereotype. It taps into a dangerous intersection of racism and pseudoscience. That is, they cannot be scientifically proven. This continues to plague the media landscape. There is no scientific basis for the claim that racial differences affect physical characteristics like vaginal size. Numerous studies have found no significant differences in vaginal measurements across racial groups. I don't even think that the human body conforms to simplistic racial categories, and the variation within racial group is often greater than between them. Such generalizations are not only inaccurate, but they are meaningless scientifically. Beyond its lack of scientific merit, the impact of this statement is profound and harmful, and it taps into a long-standing racist stereotypes about black bodies, particularly the hypersexualization of black women. And this dates back to colonial and slave era justifications that were used to dehumanize black people. By airing this type of thought, by airing this type of ideas, especially in the 21st century, the podcast just reinforces systemic racism and contributes to the ongoing marginalization of black women in the society. And it's because of thoughts like this that medical racism exists. Medical racism is simply prejudice and discrimination in medicine and the medical healthcare system based upon perceived race. So that being said, the impact of such claim just extends into healthcare where they can contribute to medical racism. I know some of you may think that I'm reaching, but bear with me. When healthcare providers internalize this false belief, it can lead to misdiagnosis, improper treatment, and a general mistrust of the healthcare system among the black communities. Studies have shown that racial bias in healthcare results in poorer outcomes for black patients across a wide range of conditions. I mean, it's already taught worldwide that black people have a higher threshold for pain than the white people. So some medical professionals do not even treat black people with the same care that they treat white people. Just imagine a medical student hearing that podcast. Of course, they've not been taught that, but a medical student hearing that podcast, in their mind, they would just think that automatically a black woman's vajayjay is bigger than the average woman's vajayjay, and that could impact the way they treat black people, especially in the medical field. This is why black people just feel more relaxed and safer in the hands of other black healthcare professionals, which is sad because we should always feel safe in the hands of any healthcare professional. Yesterday, after I recorded my second video, I was on Instagram and I'd seen this video of this woman coming out to say how she was treated during surgery. And thank God, because she had her braids up, she put her camera inside her hair to record the interaction that they had during the surgery, which is so funny because 2 weeks before her surgery, she and the surgeon, they kind of butt heads together, and then she was like, you know what, let me just record. And she did that, and for her to hear all the disgusting things that were said towards her, and they came for her weight, they came for everything, and they called her Precious because her name is Precious, and they were like, Precious, meet Precious. Literally, in case you don't know, Precious is a movie by Monique in which she hated her. I've not watched it before, but and in that movie, she was really, really fat. And obviously, they said it to put out this stereotype. It was so disgusting coming out from doctors.
On tape by a Houston woman who says she secretly recorded a doctor and staff during her surgery. Now, in these recordings, you hear remarks about her looks and her personality, and ABC's Gio Benitez has the story.
Listen carefully because few ever hear this.
She's a painful.
Secret recordings a patient says she made from the operating room. Ethel Easter says she hid a recorder in her hair extensions before going under the knife for a hernia operation. Easter says the hospital workers made disparaging comments about her body.
I was appalled, I was distraught, I was violated, thinking that I'm lying there naked after the surgery, and they have me still uncovered talking over my body like this.
And listen to this.
Precious, yes. This is Precious over here, saying hi to Precious over there.
Easter considered that to be a reference to the main character in the movie Precious.
It was racially profiling me, yes. I was offended by it.
Easter says she decided to secretly record her surgery after a tense meeting with the doctor.
She said some choice words to us in clinic when we didn't book her case within 2 weeks. Including, I'm going to call a lawyer and file a complaint. Go ahead. It just doesn't seem like the thing to say to the person that's going to do your surgery.
In a letter to Easter, the hospital, Harris Healthcare, says it has alerted staff to be mindful of comments at all times, but they say no further action is being taken.
Round and round they go, wheel of annoying patients to go.
Additionally, the psychological toll on black women is so significant. Being subjected to such dehumanizing way of thinking can lead to body image issues. It can affect the self-esteem of women, and it can also lead to internalized racism. Internalized racism is when people just feel bad for being black. We see videos at the time. Tyra Banks did a video of a guy saying that he believes he's white. I think if you've watched my Tyra Banks video, literally there's this black guy that said that he was white and they made him look white and he was happy to be white. That's internalized racism because you're not happy with your skin color, you're not happy with your race.
And it's what I feel, and it's a struggle day in and day out.
And what does your family think about this?
They don't understand it. My mom and dad abandoned me, so I don't really deal with them. But my grandmother, she just doesn't understand it, but she wants me to learn.
Your mom and dad abandoned you?
Yes.
And they're black? Do you have anything to do with why you don't like black people, maybe? I'm not the therapist, but ding ding, maybe?
It stems from a long history, so maybe, I'm not sure.
I want to show you a mirror, and I want you to tell me what you feel and what you see when you look at yourself in the mirror. This is what you look at every single day.
I see an ugly face, a big nose, nappy hair, just completely ugly.
Do you want to be white?
Yes.
All right, well, Lawrence, he said he wanted to be white. So we used the miracle of makeup to grant his wish for one day so he can see if it was everything that he thought it would be.
We set up Lawrence to step into the skin of a white man, literally.
Hey, Lawrence, how you doing? Hey, how are you? I'm Todd.
We enlisted Todd Tucker, the makeup master who turned me into a 350-pound woman, an exotic dancer, and a man, to work his magic and transform Lawrence from black to white.
The white looks to me, it looks really good. I look like I'm a real person to me. I look a lot better and feel a lot better. I have so many emotions right now. It's just so overwhelming. I don't know what to say. I'm white. I'm finally white. I can't wait to walk down the street as a white guy and just finally know that people won't see me for black. I'll be white on the outside.
The transformation was complete, and Lawrence set off to walk a day in the shoes of a white man.
I'm ready to go out and show the world the new me. Hi, how are you doing? Good. Oh, hi, how are you? I'm living in a fairy tale. I'm in Beverly Hills on Rodeo Drive. I'm white. There's nothing more that can make this dream come true for me. How are you doing, sir? Good. I can tell with people's reactions, the way they look at me are so different. The way they perceive me, they see me as a good-looking person, white, with money, lots of class, and I'm on Rodeo Drive, so it's just so great. I just can't believe it. I feel like I own the world. Sir, how are you? Good. Thank you. I know how you feel. It'll be okay. Thank you. I saw a homeless man. I saw how he felt. I mean, just a few hours ago, I was black, and I know how that feels. If I would have been a black man giving a homeless guy a couple of dollars, I think he would have just threw it down. Hi, sir. Can I pet your dog, please? Sure. Oh, thank you. He's very nice. He's very sweet. She's very sweet. I petted a dog, and I know if I was black, he would not have liked it. Being a white man, I know the dog didn't care, and neither did his owner. Had I been black, I don't think neither of them would have appreciated it. I've always felt white on the inside, but now it's like, I feel whole, I feel complete. I feel like Lawrence. My day's been very overwhelming. It's been good to be white, but then I know it can come to an end because this is not who I am. I feel very tormented. This is the way I want to live my life, but I just can't. I've always put white people up on a pedestal, but now that I have to take the makeup off, I feel like I'm just going to be one step down again.
Even though he wasn't ready, it was time for Lawrence to take the makeup off.
This feels terrible. My life is back to normal. It's over. Back to where it was earlier today. It's back to ugly old me. Being white was all I thought it would be.
It just creates an additional layer of stress and anxiety in a world that's already full of racial microaggressions and overt discrimination. Also, the fact that such claim was broadcasted at all just highlights a critical lack of diversity within the media production and the decision-making roles. So like I said, that podcast is filled with Asian people, which honestly, there's nothing there. Maybe the forefront is filled with Asian people. What are the people editing the podcast? It just shows that there's no, I don't know if there is, but someone sitting from outside just shows that there is no black person there or no person of color within the media production. It's so funny because she was like, I don't know if we might have to cut this out, but anyways, and they still kept it up. they still kept it up. The audacity they had to still keep it up gives the impression that they really thought that the rest of the world would be and stand with them, because let's face it, black women are always the bottom of the joke to every other race. Even black men themselves, they mock black women. That's why we have people like Andrew Schultz sitting comfortably speaking on black women to shots and gigs. And what did they do? They just laughed, because at the end of the day, black women are always made fun of.
What is the black girlfriend effect? This
You don't know about this.
Glow up the other culture.
Yeah, so you'll see a guy who's had a black girlfriend, all of a sudden he's got buzz cut, like clean shape up. Glows up, bro.
Yeah, I like that.
Glows the fuck up.
They shave their hair because they start losing it. Because they're so stressed being around this black girl complaining about shit all the fucking time. That's why they gotta shave their hair.
Nah, bro. White guys with black girlfriends,
they grow a beard
because
there's more cushion when they get slapped the fuck out of. That's hilarious. I think the black girlfriend effect. It might be a protective instinct, bro.
You think?
Protective. Yeah. Do you guys have you ever had black girlfriends?
Yeah.
Have you ever had white girls?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. What's your favorite?
We love them all.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
We love them all.
Yeah.
That means white.
Who gives
That means white.
Hey, let me get the U.S. translation.
Kendrick fans, get
We love them all.
That's royal English.
It's highly unlikely that this content would have made it to air if there had been a black woman in positions of authority within the production team. This incident just explains the urgent need for greater diversity in all levels of media creation, not just as a matter of fairness, but as a safeguard against the propagation of harmful stereotypes and misinformation. And again, it also resolves to critical thinking. Even if there's no black person or no person of color in your media production team, why didn't you just sit down and think and was like, maybe we shouldn't even put it out there, or do your own research? It's just critical thinking. It's just a use of your common sense. I understand these people, they came out and they put their own, but us consuming it, we should also have critical thinking, because this is an era where information and misinformation just spreads rapidly through social media and podcasting platforms. So it's very, very crucial that we as the consumers, we as the audiences are equipped with the tools to critically evaluate the content that we consume. And the backlash against the Under the Influence podcast, it was swift and severe, with many listeners, particularly women of color, feeling betrayed and marginalized. And this response just highlights the real world consequences of irresponsible broadcasting. It's not just about offending the sensibilities. Such statements can deepen societal racism. The claim about black women's body, the claim about black women's anatomy made on the Under the Influence podcast is not just offensive, it's also dangerous. It just perpetuates harmful stereotypes, it contributes to medical racism, and it lacks any basis in scientific fact. Moving forward, we must demand better from our media creators and platforms. We need more diverse voices in decision-making roles. We need to check facts before we post anything out on air, because digital footprint hardly deletes. And we need to make commitment to responsible broadcasting. This isn't just about the podcast industry, it's about the kind of landscape that we want to build. We have to strive to build a fair, inclusive, and a truthful space where everyone's humanity is respected. So that being said, now let's shift gears. We are going into the third podcast, which is the Joe Rogan's podcast. So the Joe Rogan's podcast, he has a podcast called the Joe Rogan's Experience. I really debated if I should put this in, but I'm just picking it because of the spread of information, like the kind of people that we invite to our podcast. Joe Rogan himself, he has an average of 11 million listeners per episode. Because he has this, it's one of the most influential media platforms globally. But with that influence comes hefty responsibility, one that Joe Rogan and Spotify learned the hard way. And again, I said I'm including this because of the kind of people that we bring to our podcast or the kind of people that we bring to our platform. It's not just about sitting down and spreading all this misinformation. It's about the kind of people we also invite to our space, because at the end of the day, who is at the face of the brand? It's us. In January 2022, Joe Rogan's podcast featured Dr. Robert Malone, who is a figure that became known for his controversial views during the COVID-19 panini. So Dr. Malone, who claims to have played a key role in developing the mRNA vaccine technology, appeared on the podcast and he made several claims about the COVID-19 vaccines. And these claims were misleading and they were not backed by scientific evidence. One of his most contentious claims was that people who are vaccinated after having the COVID-19 might be at greater risk of adverse side effects. And this claim, unsupported by scientific consensus, it just sparked significant backlash. It sparked so much backlash that over 270 doctors, scientists, and even healthcare professionals, they signed an open letter to Spotify expressing their concerns about the spread of COVID-19 misinformation on the platform. The backlash, it highlighted a broader debate about the responsibility of media platforms in moderating misinformation. Spotify, they had paid $100 million to Joe Rogan for exclusive rights of this podcast. And because they did that and they were in partnership with Joe Rogan, this faced mounting pressure to address the issue. In response, the company, they took several steps. Spotify, they added content advisories to episodes that discussed the COVID-19, and they directed listeners to COVID-19 Information Hub to get more reliable information. Spotify also made its platform's rules public and pledged to be more transparent about its content policies. This incident isn't just about one podcast episode. It's about the challenges that media platforms just face when it comes to balancing free speech with the responsibility to prevent the spread of information or misinformation, especially during a time where nobody knew what was going on or what was going to happen within the COVID-19 era. The controversy extended beyond the podcast itself because there were also artists like Neil Young and Johnny Mitchell that pulled out their music from Spotify to protest. And this puts additional pressure on Spotify, and this is why they really came out to act. And this response just shows how issues like this resonate across the media landscape, across the entertainment world. While protecting free speech is essential, it's also crucial to implement safeguards that prevent the dissemination of dangerous, unverified claims. Everybody obviously have their own feeling about what they think the vaccine is all about, but because it comes off like fear-mongering, it's just safer to just keep your opinions to yourself or to your own little circle. Another thing I would like to ask is, why didn't Joe Rogan do his own research before airing the podcast? I know it's very easy for you to just believe a medical professional, but again, I don't even know if I really blame Joe Rogan like that, because the person that came on his podcast, again, we have to vet the people that we bring onto our platforms. Because imagine me bringing Nick Fuentes to my podcast or to my channel. Imagine me bringing Nick Fuentes. I only bring him to knock his head. That's what I would do. I would not bring him to my channel to have a conversation, because what am I going to conversate with him? He has his own thoughts. He's heard so many people come against his thoughts. So I don't think it's my own opinion that's going to change his mind from thinking whatever he's been thinking all this while. So the only reason why I'll bring him is to knock some sense into his head, not to speak to him. I'm not going to do that. So that being said, let's move on to the hot Tuah girl, Haley Welch, because this is the one that I'm like, what the hell? Haley Welch, she has this podcast called Talk Tuah, and initially I debated if I should say how she came into being, but everybody has said that. Her podcast debuted on September 10, 2024. She had a very quick rise to fame, very quick. And her podcast is part of Jake Paul's Better Media Company. While it initially gained some traction, I think it was number 3 when it came out was it Apple or Spotify? I can't remember. The reception this podcast has had now is notably lukewarm, and it just reveals the challenges of transitioning from viral fame to a sustainable podcast format. The fact that you're famous does not mean you have to talk. You can get quick fame and do something like art, It doesn't mean you have to stay in front of a microphone and just be a podcaster. It doesn't mean that. For example, the Talk Tuah podcast, it struggles with a lack of clear structure and substance. The conversations, they often feel unstructured. They often feel like something that does not have a clear direction. Everyone is just talking, cutting each other off. And Hailey and her guests, they frequently engage in aimless banter, which makes the episodes just feel disjointed or lack coherence. Listening to the podcast, I was like, what's going on? How did you get to this point from here? Like how? And imagine being the editor in that, trying to edit this video so that it will make sense. Just imagine trying to edit this episode so that it will make sense to the viewer. That's literally a lot. As a listener, I just find that the show lacked so much depth, and instead of diving into meaningful topics, Hailey and her guests are often just talking about anything without any apparent preparation. This made it so hard for me to just stay engaged throughout the whole episode. One episode in particular just felt so directionless. I think it's the first episode. It was almost as if Hailey was just chatting to fill time, which made the conversation seem choppy or even random.
Come on, Hailey, it's not that bad. All right, it's time to get out of the bed and quit rotting. Hailey, get up.
All right, I'm ready to talk. So I wanted to start my podcast out here in Belfast, Tennessee, where I was born at and where I've been ever since until a few weeks ago and everything changed. No, really, I even learned that you can't bring a box cutter on a plane. So we'll be talking about all the crazy stuff that's happened since I got into this mess and the stuff that me and Chelsea like to do before all this happened. And I want you guys to get to know me better than Hawk Tuah. No, it's Tuah. Like, you really got to put your emphasis. Yeah, you're not saying Tuah, you're saying Tuah, you know? Like, you got to really put your back into it. Tuah, you know? My first guest is going to be somebody that's very dear to me, Miss Whitney Cummings. Make sure you hit follow on Talk Tuah wherever you get your podcast. We're releasing episodes every Tuesday. And for those of you watching on YouTube, be sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe to that thing.
Adding to the discomfort, on her first episode, she was already advertising a free money gain app.
Remember that game I mentioned beforehand where you can win up to 1,000 times your money? Well, turns out it gets even better. Better Picks is offering a deposit match up to $200 and a free pick for all new users. So basically, if you put like $200 in, they match it. That's $400 right there.
Trust me, everybody deserves to have their money. Like, get your money how you can. But personally, I just felt like this felt so out of place, and it just raised questions about her intentions and the focus for the podcast. There was a part of the podcast where she was teaching her friend how to say the Hawk Tuah phrase, and it just felt like 1,000 people were just spitting on me from the depths of their tonsils. And oh my god, it was so ill. And I promise you, I could smell the amount of saliva thrown away in that room from my MacBook.
Do it as good as
Do it.
You do it.
No, you do it.
Hot Tuah.
You gotta put like an emphasis on it, like Tuah. You know, like really. Yeah. Say it. All right, all together.
Hot Tuah.
Hot Tuah.
Hot Tuah.
Say it aggressive, like
Hot
really.
Tuah.
The content of the Talk Tuah just primarily revolves around Hailey's rise to fame, and also she gives relationship advice. These topics, they quickly become repetitive and they fail to provide any real insight. I found myself just losing interest because the show didn't even dive into something deeper. Like, having a podcast like that, you came to rise to fame. Okay, first episode, you can say whatever. Second episode, some self-development topics, speak about things, what makes you happy, like some meaningful conversation. Podcast doesn't always have to be about something that should be controversial. Does that make sense? I myself, I don't have a podcast, but I want my podcast to have substance. I want my podcast to have meaning. I want my podcast to have things that would make you want to grow, something that will make you want to live life. That's how I want my podcast to have. Hailey, she struggles, in my own opinion, to define a distinct identity, which leaves the podcast feeling empty and shallow. And instead of exploring personal growth or thought-provoking topics, the podcast just feels stuck on surface level, and they have these discussions that can easily become monotonous.
I think we need to do I don't know, like a bar crawl where we get you drunk and try to get you a slogan.
In my own opinion. And the lack of meaningful content just made it difficult for me to connect with Hailey as a host. It was as though as if she was just presenting a version of herself rather than her true self. and this kind of diminishes the authenticity of the show. Her podcast has an average of 689,000 views, which is very, very. But Hailey's first comment section, it just turned into a hub for mockery and criticisms. Viewers, they left sarcastic and humorous comments, and this just points out the perceived lack of substance in the show. It just pointed out that I was not the only person feeling the way I was feeling. She just even recently got into a scandal with a crypto rug pull, and she was exposed by Coffeezilla. So I watched the video on his second channel, Voicezilla, and he just spoke about it. And to me, I don't know how to put it, I don't know how to say it in the nicest of way, but I just feel like she doesn't have direction, and she's like a paper bag in the wind. That's how I feel. She's like a paper bag in the wind. You could tell that she doesn't even know anything about cryptocurrency, and the people who kind of gave her the go ahead to have her own meme coin, you can tell that they just wanted to exploit her. And the fact that she could not even get that is something to be worried about. I'm not even here to even bash her because she's still a young girl. I'm not here to bash her, but she's around people. She's around Jake Paul, which does not have the best reputation. But can someone in her team just sit down? Because I believe that her podcast can have great substance. Can someone just sit down and ask her, what do you want to do? What would you like to do? And kick off. There are so many great contents down there. There are so many people with podcasts that have so many listeners, and all they speak about is self-development topics, and people sit down to listen. I'm one of them. When I needed a shift in my life, I was listening to so many self-development podcasts. That's the time I really needed a shift in my life, and podcasting really, really helped. That being said, the rise of podcasting as a dominant medium for entertainment and information has brought with it a unique set of challenges, and one of the most significant being the development of parasocial relationships between the host and their audiences. And most times this is one-sided, and these one-sided relationships where listeners just feel an emotional connection to their podcast host who remain unaware of their existence can have both positive and negative consequences. However, when these relationships are mishandled or exploited, either intentionally or unintentionally, they can lead to harmful outcomes for both the audience and the host themselves. And that brings us to the nature of parasocial relationships in podcasting. When it comes to parasocial relationships, they are not just a new concept. They've been identified since the 1950s. And this was when researchers observed how audiences formed emotional connections or emotional attachment to television and radio personalities. But the intimacy and the accessibility of podcasts have amplified this phenomenon in so many profound ways. Unlike traditional media, podcasts, they often involve long-form conversational content that makes listeners feel as though they are part of a personal dialogue with the host. And the medium's auditory nature, that means like putting on your headphones, listening to this podcast, listening to the host speak through your headphones, especially when you're by yourself or in a private setting. It kind of deepens the feeling, and it makes it look as though the host is speaking directly to the listeners. Podcasts, they frequently feature unscripted discussions, they feature personal anecdotes and candid opinions from their hosts, and this openness just fosters a sense of relatability and identification, and it encourages listeners to form emotional bonds with the personality behind the microphone. For instance, let's talk about the rise of the alpha male podcast. So, with the rise of the alpha male podcast hosted by self-proclaimed dating experts and lifestyle gurus, this can appeal to vulnerable listeners. It can appeal to people who are getting on with life or who are trying to figure out who they are in life. And this can offer a simplistic, often exaggerated advice about masculinity and relationship. And the emotional connections that these listeners feel with this host can turn into parasocial bonds, which makes them more susceptible to the ideas being presented, even when they are harmful or unfounded. because there's no way on earth that you, as an Andrew Tate supporter, you've seen everything he's done to women, everything he's said, and you're still following him till now. That's an example of parasocial relationship. There's no way you're still following him. There's no way you still like him. There's no way you're still watching Fresh and Fit on Rumble. Who the fuck goes to Rumble? They can't be on Twitter, they can't be on YouTube, they can't be on Kick. You hear how they speak about people's race. They are racist, they are misogynistic. There is no way you can see all these platforms, disengage them, cut them off their platform, and you're still following them down to Rumble. Down to Rumble. There is no way. These connections, it opens a door to potential harm. And as this podcast features unscripted content, personal conflict, or extreme opinions, it can quickly escalate and it can draw in audiences who feel personally invested in defending or attacking the host. That's why people called me ugly in my Andrew Tate video. Someone else called me an African Buddhist scratcher. Someone else was like, your body, my choice. First of all, who even told you you'd be in close proximity with me? Let's start from there. Well, let's go back to this alpha male podcast again, for example. High-profile podcasts like this alpha male podcast, they have seen heated debates over controversial topics like gender roles and masculinity.
Modern-day women just don't qualify for the top-tier men, and that is the truth.
Do you believe you're a top-tier man? By what standard?
I'm 6'4", only about, 8% of the entire world is 6'4". I make well over 100K a year, and I'm black at that if you add that on. So just if we're speaking about those figures, the things that women are attracted to, no, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I'll let you do the math.
Hold on, before we go, what's your math saying?
The conversation and the words that are coming out of the mouth of someone like you, I would never consider top tier. A top tier man is also a man that is extremely desirable by way of his character. A top tier man is a man who displays a certain level of intellect that allows him to consider other people. A top tier man, they lead with love, not with dictatorship, right? They don't want to control their woman. They want to gently lead their woman. A top tier man creates space for a woman to feel good about herself. A top tier man supports the dreams and the ideas of a woman. A top tier man prioritizes a woman. A top tier man is in leadership and working as hard as he is to give the woman the life of her dream.
And with all that stuff that you just said, that was just womanese talk.
Womanese is also 6'4", black, attractive. I don't know too many women in my circle who desire a 6'4" man still wearing braids.
Listeners who become emotionally attached to this host may feel compelled to align themselves with their chosen figures against opposing views. This can lead to toxic online environment, harassment, and a reinforcement of harmful stereotypes. One of the most troubling aspects of parasocial relationship is how personal conflicts involving podcast hosts can escalate when played out on a public platform. Podcasts have increasingly become arenas for people to come out and air their grievances, engage in feuds, or address interpersonal disputes. That's why Fresh and Fit, I think they had a dispute with Abba and Preach. H3 podcast, he had a dispute with Trisha Paytas. And these conflicts, they can quickly spiral out of control, and they can draw in audiences who feel personally invested in defending or attacking one side. All this is playing out in front of people who listen and watch these people. Another example is this alpha male podcast. They have demonstrated how parasocial dynamics can escalate tension. Listeners who feel emotionally connected to the host may take part in online harassment campaigns against perceived threats to the host authority or ideology. And this kind of escalation, it can create a toxic environment both online and offline. And this could, in the long run, have real-world implications. There are some cases that have been extreme, and in extreme cases, this conflict can lead to doxing, stalking, or other forms of real-world harm. So now we've kind of spoken about parasocial relationship, especially when it comes to podcasting. Let's speak about the importance on the audience mental health. Speaking about this podcast problem on YouTube, on this video, I just wanted to go through a path that people haven't really gone before, and that's why I chose to speak about the audiences and the social relationship that they have with the host. The effect of parasocial relationships on audience mental health can be so significant, particularly when these relationships become obsessive or toxic. There was a research that was published in the Journal of Broadcasting and Electronic Media, and this research suggests that intense parasocial relationship with podcast hosts can lead to increased anxiety and depression among the people who listen to this host. And this is especially true when hosts engage in public feuds or controversial behaviors that disrupts the perceived bonds between them and their audience. For some listeners, this relationship, it just serves as a form of escapism or substitute for real-life social interactions. Obviously, this form of escapism can provide a temporary comfort, or it can also provide a sense of belonging, but it also falls short of fulfilling deeper emotional needs. When a host behaves in a way that conflicts in the listener's expectations, such as engaging in a harmful rhetoric or becoming embroiled in scandals, it can feel like a personal betrayal. These parasocial breakups can leave listeners feeling disillusioned, it can leave listeners feeling angry, or even leave them with grief. Okay, if you're Nigerian, you should know Toke Makinwa. So, Toke Makinwa used to have this thing every Wednesday. She used to have Toke moments. And oh my God, I was like an avid watcher of Toke moments. She used to speak about relationships, she used to speak about her husband, she used to speak about how well her husband was doing so good to her. I loved Toke Makinwa. She was my favorite Nigerian celebrity. Like, I loved her so much. I had to take relationship advice from her. Then I was still in uni. I was like, because I graduated uni when I was 20 years, so you guys can imagine how young I was. But I really used to listen to Toke Moments so much because I really, really did love her. So it came out that her husband has been so abusive to her. But she used to talk about her husband, how perfect her marriage was, how perfect her relationship was. And I aspired to be like that. And it came out that, oh my God, this is literally not how her husband treated her. Her husband had been cheating on her, that even her wedding day, she was so scared. She told people to submit their phones so that in case her husband said he didn't want to marry her, it wouldn't be recorded. It was that bad. And obviously, growing up, I realized that, oh my God, I have formed a parasocial relationship with Toke Makinwa, because I remember when she came out and she wrote her book, Unbecoming. And when she wrote that book and I read the book, like, I remember my cousins, they were like kind of mocking me and being like, oh, look at your role model. So she's been lying all this while. Since then, I was like, I ain't doing no parasocial relationship with anybody. I would just take your message and leave you apart. Literally, and that's how it's been. And I'm so glad that this happened when I was younger. But there's some people that do not understand that. There's some people that do not know how to decipher the personality, the person speaking, and the message they are portraying. That's why there's no way on earth you should be able to get an advice from Andrew Tate, whether it's good or not. Because he brings nothing to the table. He's a vile human being. Podcasters, they must recognize that their platforms are not just tools for self-expressions, but also vehicles for shaping public discourse and individual well-being. Podcasting is more personal than commentary, because there sometimes they don't even have a script. They just come out and they just say whatever. But like with commentary, you're coming speaking on something, and if I want to tell you a part of my life, it's because I want to tell you. I'm not just yapping away. I research, I write, and I come out and I speak to you guys and tell you guys my findings. It's more like criticizing or like reporting a news. That's literally what commentary is all about. But podcasting is more personal. You're letting people into your thoughts, what you think is more personal than commentary. So you should understand that what you bring out from your mouth is a vehicle for shaping public discourse and individual well-being. And this responsibility includes being mindful of how personal conflicts are addressed on air, and also avoiding the rhetorics that these conflicts could incite. These responsibilities include being mindful of how personal conflicts are addressed on air and avoiding rhetoric that could incite hostility among your listeners. So now let's talk about the role of platforms. Podcast hosting like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other podcast, they bear responsibility for mitigating harm caused by these parasocial dynamics. These platforms themselves, they face a challenging balancing act, and this balancing act is protecting free speech while minimizing the spread of harmful content such as misinformation or also hate speech. To address this effectively, platforms could implement more robust content moderation policies that are similar to those used by social media companies. For example, fact-checking partnerships could help to ensure that information shared on podcasts are accurate. Another thing is that clearer guidelines on acceptable content could discourage creators from exploiting their platforms for personal vendettas. An improved algorithm could flag potentially problematic episodes that could cause widespread harm. Media literacy is another component that comes in when you're addressing the dangers of parasocial relationship. Podcasters, people who sit behind the camera and spread their news around to the world, they need to be media literacy educated, if that's even the word. Listeners also must be equipped with the skills to critically evaluate the content that they consume and recognize when their emotional investment in a creator is becoming unhealthy. Finally, there need to be a need for updated legal frameworks to address some of these unique challenges that are posed by podcasting. For example, regulations could clarify liability for misinformation or harmful thoughts or stereotypes that have been shared on this podcast, because I don't see why there's any reason why you should sit down and speak down on a woman. I watched like a clip of the Fresh and Fit podcast speaking down on Asian doll. How do you speak down on a woman like that? Because of your disdain for women.
Excuse me?
You mean?
I'm not mean at all.
Okay, I don't care.
Have you been here the whole time?
No.
All right then, so you don't know what was happening,
I
right?
don't give a fuck.
Okay then. So, how you gonna come on somebody's show, not know what go down, and say, "Oh, you're mean"?
It don't matter. I can say what I want.
Okay, well you can get the fuck off the show too.
I don't give
Man,
a fuck.
Get off the show
chill,
too.
man. What? Chill out, bro.
Listen, don't do my like
Nah,
that.
you can go.
No,
Chill. She ain't
You're
gotta
not
go.
gonna come on the platform disrespect.
Nah, chill, bro. She ain't gotta go nowhere.
No, she
chill.
could go.
Chill, bro.
I don't have to.
Chill.
Come on,
baby. We don't have to be this mean. We can all be. Come on.
Chill out, bro.
Let's calm
I'm
down.
sorry.
He's hot. I'm calm.
No, I'm very calm, but it's like, bro, you gotta show a little bit of respect on the platform.
It's cool,
respect.
bro.
You talking about
Chill.
shit. I say you mean. It is what it is. What the fuck you want me to say?
That's
You
not the truth,
mean,
though.
You mad about I said mean? You grown as hell.
What?
Yeah, well.
Okay. So earlier on the show, there's a little back and forth. So he was just telling her to chill because it was like 5 times before to like chill.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Okay, but I said he mean. Why he wanna stop the shit?
Well,
do some dramatic.
Because you don't know what was going on.
We are on the show.
It's good though, bro. Hey,
Why would
yo.
that piss you off?
Chill, bro. It's all right. We all right. We good.
He want a moment. Get it slow.
We good. Let's keep going, bro. We all
I
right.
wanna leave.
Let's keep the
No, don't leave, please.
I won't.
Please.
Okay, just like from here on out, like please,
on his
one
ass,
at a
he's
time
tripping.
because we're going to the show
we'll
right now,
start
okay?
it over. I promise I won't say nothing. I promise.
This is the 5th time.
Okay.
You said that last time.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, let's start
Go
it
ahead.
over. Okay.
Listen, dude. Listen. Don't let them down for you.
All right.
Oh, I'm vain
Super
now?
chats and then we'll
Nah,
do,
nah. I'm just talking in general. Don't get me
the
beat
calculator.
up, but.
No, we'll end the show after this.
After this, okay, cool.
Yeah, 20 and up.
Netty pot.
Netty pot for tomorrow
That's
morning.
messed up.
I need one. Venmo me or send it to me via Uber Eats. Thanks. Bye.
We got Dixie Normus.
Thank you.
$10 says, girl, Tuah from Myron is fresh, you know? Okay. We got DJ says, Dan, when Asian Law sat down, she made all the other girls look busted. You up? All right, later. All right, girl Tuah from Myron is fresh, you know? Okay, cool. And then we got got some going on in the back.
They can't even pay attention to the damn screen.
Damn. Cool. So we're gonna end this show here shortly. And Chris. Chris. Let's close up.
Yeah, good decision to roll out Asian. Don't come on someone's show not knowing what's going on and speak it down on the host. Respect the show. Yeah, facts.
Yeah.
First time donating, just say Myron is a real one. Don't change for nobody. Yeah, fuck out of here, bro. We don't change. I don't even know who she is, so I don't care.
That's King Von girl. Like, you know who King Von is?
No, I know who King Von is, but
Okay,
I mean,
then you should know who his girl is.
I don't have to know who his girl is.
It's
I
King
mean, if you're a
Von
real
because,
fan,
like,
to be honest.
hold on, the fact you said it's King Von's girl instead of it was her.
Yeah, that tells you right there
That
all
tells
you
you
need to know.
everything.
I don't know who.
And at this point, I feel it's performative. They're trying to have a viral moment, but at the expense of another gender. Are you okay in your head? Because what the actual fuck? So now let's come to conclusion. As we've explored today, parasocial relationships, they represent both an opportunity and a challenge within the world of podcasting. And while these connections can foster community and engagement, they also carry significant risk where boundaries blur or conflict escalates. Moving forward, podcasters must recognize their influence and act responsibly to protect their audience from harm. Platforms, they must strike a balance between enabling free speech, free expression, and curbing abuse. And listeners, they must approach podcasts with critical minds, understanding that these one-sided relationships are not used for genuine human connection. By addressing these issues collectively, we can work together to create a healthier podcasting ecosystem that benefits everyone involved, while we're also minimizing its potential pitfalls. And guys, that brings us to the end of this video. My emotions were all over the place, but if you watched it, thank you so much for stopping by, and see you in my next video. Please share this video if you care. Please, I really hope you care. This is my third time recording this. But that being said, drop a mic emoji because I think I ate with this one. Drop a mic emoji when you're done. And thank you so much. Till next time. Bye.
I'll stop playing games when men stop playing games, you know? But I've learned to enjoy the game.
Yeah.
For me, it's like,
That's the truth,
if you're a woman
isn't it?
who
Yeah.
chooses to date men, because remember, like, it's actually not by force to date. We have desires to be around certain people, but it's actually not by force. So if you're choosing to date men, you have to acknowledge that you're opting into a game. So decide, do you want to win this game, or are you going to be that person that's like, I'm a nice person, I'm going to show all my cards. No one's going to come and congratulate you for losing the game because you want to be a nice person. Just sit to the side and let someone else who wants to play the real game. For me, it's like, I've clocked that, okay, in the first, 3 months of knowing a guy, he's going to be putting his best foot forward because that's the impression that he wants to give you. He really wants to earn your trust. After that, it's
Which
up to
is
them.
actually, I was having a conversation about this the other day, it's actually a form of manipulation.
Of course it is.
It's like such a, and when you say this to men, they start panicking because they think now you're going to start saying, oh, it was against my will. And it's like, no, it wasn't against my will, but it was also manipulation. Like, you presented yourself in a certain type of way in order to get into my panties, and now you've got into my panties and you've adjusted your behavior. Because if you showed me this behavior in the beginning, you wouldn't have got in my panties.
Most times it's because they don't have what you need.
And also, most times because they actually don't have game. I remember my friend said to me, he was a guy, he said to me, a real guy that actually has game, they shouldn't have to be telling you lies to get in your panties. They should just be able to say to you, this is what I want. Can you give it to me?